I think similarly to how an addict doesn't want to be addicted to crack cocaine, those that experience trauma early in their childhood or just continuous trauma, whether it be big T or little t, which we dive into in my program, Wounds to Wealth, the differences and how they affect us. Because a lot of times people roam this earth thinking that they don't need therapy or therapy won't work for them or that they're not traumatized because they haven't experienced something super profound, whether it be house fire or molestation or grief, the loss of a very close loved one, or abuse, domestic violence, right? A plane crash, etc. We think, I have it better than most, or I'm not traumatized. But those little T's, those micro traumas, neglect, emotional neglect, even if your parents were there, being children of an addict, being a cast out in school, whether it be elementary school or whatever, right? These things are still affecting how you navigate and move in the world today. And those that feel that they are not traumatized oftentimes are minimizing their experience. And we are not here to compare and contrast what trauma is worse than the other, or why somebody should be feeling this way versus that, because somebody could experience the same thing and ultimately have a different outcome on their life. I've seen studies where identical twins that grew up in the same environment and experienced basically the same things. Of course, they're different individual people, but same parents, same house, same neighborhood, same school. One ends up going the path of drugs or suicide, where the other one chooses to thrive and not become an addict or not follow the footprints of their parents or whatever, right? So you get what I'm saying. Ultimately, in the other grand scheme of things, when we look at worldly problems, oftentimes we are looking at it from a different perspective than those that are living inside of it. So because of the contrast of where we are in our lives, whether it be that we are in our suburban house with our trust fund, or whatever it may be that we enter this world in, we look at the things on the news, and those of us that feel, empathy and compassion and fear and anguish and anger at looking at the world, we tend to feel worse than those actually experiencing it, that discomfort, that unsatisfaction, that distaste, that horrificness. Primarily because there is no contrast for them. That is their reality. And so therefore they are struggling, but they learn different coping skills. That is their reality, right? And so because we have this deep contrast in our suburban house or whatever it may be, that I'm just trying to do two different sides of a coin, we feel that more intensely, that discomfort. That's not to minimize what they're experiencing, and that's not where I'm going at, but it's the perspective of what we see and feel, and about ourselves, about our own trauma, about others' traumas, and so forth and so on. But what I was saying is the addict obviously doesn't want to be addicted to crack cocaine, right, or heroin or opioids or whatever it may be. Similarly, those that have experienced trauma, which is all of us really, but those that have experienced hardship, those that have lived in uncertainty and chaos, oftentimes become addicted to their sadness. They become addicted to the victimhood. They become addicted to the victim mentality, whether it be subconscious or conscious. And why that is because our brain has adapted, and it's neurons, to find familiarity in that feeling. So the feeling of sorrow often is uncomfortable, and can lead to poor choices and or taking one's life. But why is it that when we enter into a different experience of our life, whether we grew up and got to move away from home, or now we're adults raising children and we're no longer being molested by our stepdad, and or we're no longer in the environment that was breaking us down, we can't seem to find the joy. And it's almost like when everything is going right around us, our brain automatically just goes back to feeling sorrow. I speak from experience. And that's because our brain has created pathways, a pattern, a psychological pattern to make sense of what we experienced and became adapted to and addicted to that feeling. Addicted not because it feels good, but because we now know how to navigate that feeling, even if in the moment we don't feel like we know how to navigate it because it's uncomfortable, but we are so familiarized with that discomfort that anything that feels safe, secure, or healthy feels uncomfortable. Don't you look at that, right? Both ends feel uncomfortable, but somewhere in the brain knows how to deal with the discomfort of chaos, abuse, neglect, but not receiving love or compassion or grace, right? And so that's why we find ourselves in this trap of, all these things are going well. I know what I need to do. I have all of this awareness. I have the awareness. How come I can't implement it? And it's because it's not like a quick fix. Your brain has literally redesigned itself to survive whatever it was needing to survive. The animalistic in us is survivors. But now we have to remind ourselves that that is not the environment of which we are in, and that is not the place of which we want to live in anymore. And so again, it's so easy for us to become addicted to our negative feelings. And we see this play out because I know personally from personal experience, if I'm feeling down, if I'm having a down day, I don't put on naturally, unless I force myself to, even though it almost feels like pulling teeth because it's like, I can't relate to this right now. But I put on sad music. I fuel it. I feed it in the name of relatability, in the name of understanding, in the name of this is how I'm feeling. This makes sense to me right now. Let me fuel that. You're not even consciously knowing you're fueling it, but it's because we as humans desire belonging. And when we are in a state of sorrow or grief or despair, we want to belong to something, and we can't belong to the happiness. So we tie ourselves into the despair and the grief and the sorrow because that feels like we belong there. And that cures this sense of belonging that is driven, hardwired into all of us as mankind. And we just find ourselves fueling these things. Same thing with, again, speaking from personal experience here, but I am a horror junkie. And sometimes I wonder why. Why do I feel such satisfactory from watching really distraught, awful things on the TV? Why do we fuel our craze and fear with the propaganda of the news? Why do we? I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure maybe your mom, your dad, or loved ones, they just are glued to all of the stuff being fed to us. And you notice how it affects their mood and how it just makes it worse when that energy, that negativity that they're in does not serve anyone, even if it's coming from a place of compassion, like I just said the other day in my other little podcast style conversation. Because we are addicted to the feeling of familiarity. And if that familiarity, if it stems from chaos, if it stems from sorrow, we keep using. The crackhead doesn't want to keep going to crack because they know that it does not benefit their life. But something in their brain tells them they need it. They need it. That's what they know. That's how they know to feel good. And that's the work of mental health. That's the work of self-development. That's the work of mankind, of humanity, is to understand the wirings of which your brain was designed. I wouldn't say designed because it was designed perfect and whole, but curated to adapt, survive. That's the animalistic in us, not the spiritual aspect of us, right? And then dismantle it. And that's the part that's tricky. So what I just learned through therapy with my phenomenal therapist is the state of healing, because we can say like, recovery, right? The state of recovery, of healing, of not being addicted to things that we know don't serve us. We get to this place of like hyper awareness, and I've been stagnant in that place for a while because I've always been full of wonder. Personally, I wonder how to become my best version. I wonder about the world. I wonder how the world works. I wonder about spirituality, all these different religions. If you notice, if you've watched my content, if you see, I have different religious symbols tattooed all amongst my body. I have a cross, I have an Om, I have an Ankh, I have, unfortunately, and I say that lightly because it is what it is, and it's all about balance, but I have a satanic cross from back when I was a kid, and I delve into to darkness, because that's where I was in, right? I was addicted to this darkness, and I wanted to belong, and I felt so dark that was the only thing that felt that it responded to me. I didn't feel that God or source or religion of Christ was getting me anywhere in my mind that I felt safe. And I realized the path I was going down only bred more destruction. But I still embody this symbol, only because I embody all symbols, because all is tied into one, and in that knowing that there's something much greater than what we can ever comprehend. But the point of that is the state of awareness. The state of awareness is a tricky place to be in, because we can see all of these things. I don't even know how I just got into religion. I'm gonna have to look back on this video and see where that train of thought went. But I'm coming back to the state of awareness and what my therapist helped me understand, because we can always be, you hear people that talk about, oh, well, when does healing stop? There's always stuff to heal. And that's true. This is the human experience. Life be life, and right? Often through choice that ripples into every other direction, right? If we have to hold very strongly our integrity, but also our, what's the word I'm looking for? Responsibility, I think is the word I'm looking for. Our responsibility for our own life. I mean, we can hand the reins over to all the people that hurt us, but what good does that do? That again fuels the sorrow of which we are addicted to, the chaos of which we are addicted to, because it's familiar. And if I can just blame that, well, then I don't have to do the work on myself. I don't have to look real hard at myself on what I could have done differently, and whether or not I was a child and these things happened, or an adult and I made certain choices that led to more things that occurred that was traumatic. I still have the responsibility to take back the reins of my life and choose what comes next, and not point fingers forever, right? Whether or not I was completely innocent in the whole encounter or not, it's still your responsibility. You're still in the driver's seat. But we can always say, well, when do we heal? Life is always lifing. When do we get to heal? Well, healing is a continuous journey. And yes, I agree to that. But then there's also people that say, well, no, you reach this state of alignment, the state of elevation, of understanding, and you're healed. Well, then your loved one dies and you're distraught, and everything that you've learned is out the window, and you spiral into the comfort of what you know to survive, which is despair. But he taught me this, and I really, really resonated with this, and I want to leave you with this, because I think it's important to anybody's recovery in understanding, taking a hard look and accepting that you are addicted to your own suffering, and that you contribute to it, whether you know it or not. That's where metacognition comes in, is being the observer of thought and being able to direct it, and noticing the observer, observing the thoughts. That's also in my program, Wounds to Wealth, and we dive into that and learn how to activate that in a much more profound way. But it starts with unconscious incompetence, right? So what I mean by that, unconscious incompetence, you are completely unconscious to the fact that you are incompetent. You don't know what you don't know because you don't know it. You don't know that you're addicted to these things because you don't know it, right? You don't know what you don't know. Point blank, period. And we'll come to find as we evolve that those that know things know that they know nothing at all, right? But that's besides the point. We can talk about that another day. But we don't know what we don't know. So we are unconscious about our incompetence, about where we are falling short, our character defects, where we fuel this addictive personality to our trauma. And then we move into conscious incompetence. This is the state of hyper-awareness. I am conscious that I am fueling that addiction. I am conscious that I am giving the reins of my joy, my happiness, my peace to others. I am conscious of it. I am conscious that I am getting triggered by all means, this disproportionate reaction to something my partner did, my mother did, my child did, when realistically, if I funnel back, I can see where something like this might not be identical, but it caused this feeling, this fear that I've latched onto, and now that's coming back up again. And they really didn't do that much wrong. They just kind of ticked you off, but like your reaction is so disproportionate to what somebody who didn't experience that trauma back in the day would have expressed in their experience of that reaction, of that emotion, given the trigger, right? The trigger is the bruise that was already there and it gets bumped. Figure out what caused that bruise to begin with and don't attack the person that bumped it, right? Triggers are your responsibility. Again, that's a conscious incompetence. That is the hyper awareness. That is the state of which I have resided in for 3 years in my real deep research of myself. And when I say myself, I mean human, my human form, my human experience, right? So it's holistic, it's wide, I'm speaking, when I say myself, I mean you too. Because understanding me helps me understand you, understands the world, understands life, understands humanity, helps me navigate things, helps me understand why people do and act and behave a certain way, and hold more compassion in knowing that it's something else. But then from there, we move to conscious competence, right? Now I'm conscious of the things that I need to do. Oh, I'm triggered. So I'm going to go back. I'm not going to take it out on the person that triggered me because it's not their responsibility. And yeah, they might have pissed me off, but realistically, my reaction is so disproportionate to what would actually be a effective reaction to this problem. It's taken me way out of alignment, way off my rocker, took away my joy. Now I'm conscious of that, so I'm going to funnel back. I'm going to do the work and figure out where that's coming from, and I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to heal that so that when this trigger comes back up, I don't react the same way. I don't give the reins over of my joy, peace, and happiness to this other person. Or similarly with my trauma, I'm going to look back at that. I'm going to see it for what it was. Again, in my program, we look at, this is big in self-development, but we look at the narratives of which we created. It's what we view life through. Our narratives are what we view life through, the stories. We all perceive life in these lenses. Until we can wash away these lenses, we can see life for what it really is. And that is like the core of my foundation of my program before we get into the abundance building, because we need to master ourselves to know how to navigate the abundance of which we are deserving of, our birthright. But now I can see what really happened versus the story, the narrative, and take it for what it is at face value. What happened. It is what it is. But I don't need to give that power away anymore. Today's a new day, and I get to take control, right? So we get into conscious competence. Now I'm competent in my maneuvering of how I navigate my experience walking this earth. And then we get into, one second, my daughter needs me. She wanted to give me a kiss, how sweet. So where was I? So now I'm consciously competent. And when we get to a state of healed, again, life will always come up, but now we know how to utilize these tools. And so when we learn how to utilize these tools and take back control of our life, peace, joy, and serenity, happiness, things don't have as much of an effect on us. I mean, we can still feel the human emotions of grief. We can still sit in that sorrow for a moment, but we know how to navigate ourselves out of it and not fuel it. We understand life for what it is. We understand that nothing is permanent, right? Not even our feelings, not life, not death. Everything is always moving. We become unconsciously competent. This is one of the most profound things that I learned from my therapist, Charlie. We become unconsciously competent. And what I mean by that is you are now navigating these triggers that are no longer triggers because you've done the work. You had that awareness. You became competent, consciously competent, did the work, understood, navigated, rewired your brain through these practices of looking back, understanding why you are the way you are, understanding humanity at large. Through understanding yourself, through healing yourself, you heal the world. And now everything that you do and navigate life is now unconscious competence. Now you know what you needed to know, and now you navigate those things unconsciously. You're not having to really focus and like, oh shit, I'm triggered, but I know it's not. It's disproportionate, so I got to go back and do the work. Now it's just like, I saw what that was, and it's just unconscious. It's like, yes, that one I need some work on, right? That is the state of healed. That is the state where we are no longer addicted to our suffering. And I'm not in any way saying you want to be sad. I am in no way saying you want to suffer. Nobody wants to suffer. That's a really, really poor feeling. But myself included, it's not really what our conscious mind knows. It's the unconscious wiring hard drived into our adaptation of survival. And that is a state of which we aspire to achieve. And without getting to that point, without doing the work of looking at the mind, anything we think that we can obtain, whether it be happiness, materialistics, wanting to do something, achieve something, and not knowing why I just can't get myself to do it. The motivation's not there. It's because we're not looking at the core foundation, as I mentioned on my last video. The whole core, you want abundance, but I don't know how to receive it. I'm so used to being in scarcity and lack. I'm addicted to scarcity and lack. So when I do receive this abundance, when I do create this business that I want to take off, I sabotage it. Why? Because I know how to navigate sabotaging something, because sabotaging something brings despair, grief, and unhappiness, and I know how to navigate that discomfort. I don't know how to navigate the discomfort of things going well, the possibilities, the abundance, the prosperity. I don't know how to navigate that. I don't even know what to do with it. I don't know how to keep it going, because now I have this money. Now I'm in so much fear. My business is really taking off. I'm like holding my money white knuckled because I'm still in fear and lack and scarcity, and I'm fueling it. And of course, it's going to be sabotaged by me because that's familiar. And I love to be comfortable, right? Anyway, I love you. I hope this message helped. I don't know why I felt like talking about it today. And I'm off to dance tango with my man. But otherwise, if you are in need of some extra guidance and or better understanding of how to get to the life of your dreams holistically, spiritually, mentally, physically, materialistically, I encourage you to check out my 6-week, 3-phase program, Wounds to Wealth. And it is available in the bio of my channel, as well as on my WAP store and my Stan store. And I look forward to having you join the community, and I will see you over there. Bye.